close to my mouth. Okay, if for some reason during the presentation, if you can't hear me, just let me know. This is an informal presentation. So yeah, feel free to call it out if there are any issues. So once again, my name is David Jacob. I'm the bear biologist for the West Panhandle of Florida with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. So I work for the state, and I'm help to manage the bears for the West Panhandle, and that includes Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, Okaloosa, Walton, and Holmes County. So today we're going to be talking about the Florida black bears. The Florida black bear is just one of 14 subspecies of bears found in North America. So let's begin by talking about the history of the Florida black bear. So pre-Columbian era, before Europeans settled Florida, it is estimated that there are about 11,000 bears here in Florida. And that is just a very rough estimate based on the resources that would have been available at the time. But throughout the years, due to hunting and habitat loss, the numbers did decline. And by 1970s, it is estimated that there are only about 500 Florida black bears in the state. So in 1974, the Florida black bear was listed as a state threatened species. In 1994, all hunting was closed for bears. And then the numbers did begin to rebound in the 90s and early 2000s. And by 2012, the numbers had increased, where the state decided to remove the bear from the list of threatened species. In 2015, the state reopened bear hunting. However, they reopened it just for that one season and they closed it again. And then the hunting season was closed between 2016 and 2024. But this past year, they did reopen it. So let's talk a little bit about the bear range and population here in the state of Florida. So it is estimated that about 50% of the state of Florida has bears in it. And it's estimated that there are over 4,000 bears throughout the state. So we have 7 different primary populations of bears throughout the state. 4 of those populations have over 1,000 individuals. And those include the East Panhandle, the Central population, and the South population, as well as the North population. Now it's a little bit deceiving because it says the North population only has 500 bears, and I just said that it should have over 1,000. That's because that 500 is not taking into account the 800 bears that are just over the Georgia border in the Okefenokee Swamp. So those are still part of the North population because bears don't really recognize state lines. So if you include those other 800 bears in the Georgia region, that puts the population up to over 1,000. Then we have 3 populations that have under 200 bears. That includes the West Panhandle, so the population where we are now, as well as the population in the Big Bend of Florida and the population in the South Central area, just to the northwest of Lake Okeechobee. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between males and females. So this picture right here, a lot of people see it and they think that's an adult female with her cub or juvenile. That actually is not what's going on here. That is a full-size male next to a full-size female. So you can see that there's quite a large difference between males and females in terms of size. So on average here in Florida, a male can be anywhere between 250 to 450 pounds, whereas an adult female is about half the size, on average 125 to 250 pounds. The largest male on record here in Florida was 760 pounds, whereas the largest female on record was 400 pounds. Bears do roam a lot more than females and have larger ranges. On average, a male's bear range is going to be 62 square miles, whereas females is only 15 square miles. And males are more risk-taking and females are more secretively careful, which might explain why when we set traps, we tend to get more males than females. So let's talk a little bit about bear behavior and breeding. So bears are primarily solitary animals. However, in June and July, they do come together for mating purposes. Female bears do have an adaptation called delayed implantation. And it's actually a really fascinating adaptation where once the female's egg is fertilized, it doesn't implant in the uterus wall until later in the season. And the reason for that is the female is determining how healthy she is, or her body is determining how healthy she is. And the more healthy she is, the more eggs will implant. The less healthy she is, the less nutrients she gets throughout the fall, the less eggs will implant and the less cubs she'll have. So long story short, a healthier female bear that was able to get more nutrients throughout the year is going to have more cubs, just because her body can support it. And then in February, so it just passed, the cubs are born in the den. So let's talk a little bit about black bear cubs. So when the cubs are born, they're only 12 ounces at birth. So if you want to picture that, that's about the same size as a can of soda. So they're tiny and helpless, and they're born blind, and their ears are sealed. A female can have anywhere between 1 and 5 cubs per litter, but the average number of cubs is going to be between 2 and 3. So we're coming right up to it, but around the first week of April, that's when the bear cubs are mobile. They're about 5 pounds, and that is when the cubs and the mom start emerging from the den. So if you live in a place with bears, be prepared. In early April is when you begin to sometimes see the moms coming out with the little cubs. And the cubs do stay with the mom for about 1.5 years, at which point she drives them away so she can mate, get pregnant, and have more cubs. Because when she has her old cubs, she'll never have new cubs. She gets rid of the old ones before getting pregnant and having cubs. So female bears will have cubs every other year. So let's talk a little bit about a bear's diet. Bears are what we call omnivores, meaning that they eat both plants and animals. However, here in Florida, a bear's diet is primarily made up of vegetation. So 73% of their diet is going to be plant-based. That includes palmetto plants, grasses, acorns and nuts, and berries. So about 22% of their diet is made up of insects. That includes things like termites, wasps, and bees. And only 5% of their diet is actual meat. And that usually is things that either play dead, like a possum, or things that are actually dead, like roadkill or caribou.
Yeah.
So bears are naturally what we call crepuscular animals. So there's nocturnal animals that are most active at night, the diurnal animals that are most active during the day. But a term that you don't hear as much is crepuscular, which means an animal is most active at dawn and dusk, and that's what bears are. However, bears that live around people tend to be more nocturnal. And the reason they've adapted to be more nocturnal is to avoid interaction with people. Because in general, they don't want to be around people. However, it is important to remember that bears can be active anytime, night or day. A lot of times I hear people say, like, I saw the bear in the middle of the day. Isn't that crazy and wild? I'm like, well, it's more unusual, but it's not that crazy. It's definitely not unheard of to see a bear, in broad daylight. So in general, bears do want to avoid conflict with people, and 90% of the time they will use the tactic of avoidance to get out of an altercation with a person. So avoidance includes either running away, hiding, or climbing a tree. And bears can be easily treed, and in this case, this bear was treed by a house cat named Jack. So another misconception is when a bear gets on its hind legs, it is acting aggressive. That actually is not true. When a bear gets up on its hind legs, it's actually being curious. The reason it's getting on its hind legs is it's got a higher vantage point, and it can see, hear, and smell better from higher up. So it's believed that a bear can see in color, and their eyesight is about the same as us humans. Bears do have excellent hearing, but their best sense is definitely their sense of smell. So bears can smell, I believe, 7 times greater than blood. And a bloodhound can smell 300 times greater than we can. So a bear can smell a whopping 2,100 times greater than we can. It's definitely their best sense. They can smell things up to a mile away, and it really is how they perceive the world. So when a bear gets up, he's probably just smelling, checking things out. This is not an aggressive stance. So this video right here, hopefully it plays. This video right here just shows how curious bears are, but at the same time, how easily they can be frightened away. So let's see if it plays. Yes, it does. So you can see the boot of a hunter at the top of the second stand. The bear really smells him. It doesn't entirely know it's up there. It just smells like something weird. Because us humans do smell weird to bears. And he's just going out and investigating. Hey, what are you doing there? What are you doing there? So that was the hunter's voice saying, "Hey, what are you doing there? What are you doing there?" He didn't yell, he didn't shout, he merely just stated that, "Hey, I'm human." The bear realized he didn't want anything to do with that guy, went back down and ran away. And even though the hunter was in a hunting stand, this was filmed, I believe, in Minnesota, the hunter did not take that bear. So at the end of the day, both the bear and hunter were. So if a bear is not happy with your presence and it doesn't run away, it will let you know that it's uncomfortable with how close you are. So just like a rattlesnake rattles its tail when it's uncomfortable, bears will show you that they're uncomfortable with you being in their personal space. And we as humans can recognize these signs and we can de-escalate the situation. And I'll tell you how to do that in this next slide. So a bear's warning or defensive signs include jaw popping, ground stomping, bluff charging, huffing, and ear spin back. And I got another video showing what a bluff charge looks like. So that is the classic bluff charge, and we have it here in slow motion. You can see the ears are pinned back. It's charging. That's the hump right there. And that is the jaw pop. So those are all classic signs the bear is not happy with your presence, and this is the way the bear is asking you to give it more space. If a bluff charge does happen to you, don't get me wrong, it's going to be scary. It's not going to be like something that you are going to be like wanting to have happen, but the bear is not intending to hurt you. It's basically asking in a bear's way to give it more space. So if a bear does exhibit any of those signs, you can see the bear is uncomfortable. What do? We do not want to run, and we do not want to play dead. We don't want to run because that can trigger a bear's instinct to chase, and it can actually escalate the situation as opposed to de-escalate, which is what we want to do. So how do we de-escalate the situation? You want to back away slowly while quietly talking to the bear. Backing away slowly creates space from the bear, and talking quietly helps to calm the bear down, helps calm yourself down, and it allows the bear to realize that you're human. In case for some reason it really didn't know what you were. Let's say it's like night, and all it sees is movement. If you talk to the bear, it knows that you're human. So what's the difference between a bear encounter and a bear attack? So that video of a bluff charge was not a bear attack. It was actually a bear encounter. It's only considered a bear attack if the bear actually makes physical contact with you. In that case, you definitely want to fight back. All we have are black bears here in Florida. We don't have any grizzly or brown bears. So you can fight the bear and get it off. So if the bear does make contact with you, you want to kick, scream, punch, do anything you can to get that bear off. And I know that might sound scary, and it will be scary, but I also want to stress it is extremely rare to have a bear make physical contact with you. I believe we have 23 million people living here in Florida, and we've been recording instances where people have been injured by bears since 2006. And I think we have a whopping 50 for the entire state with 23 million people. So what I want to get across is a bear hurting someone is very, very, very rare. Every time you get into your car, you have a lot higher chance of getting hurt in a car accident. So, like I just mentioned, we have 23 million residents here in Florida and an additional 120 million visitors every year. So that's a lot of people. We also have over 4,000 bears. So the bear population is increasing here in Florida, which is great, but it's only leading to more and more human and bear interactions. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a place that people say, I've lived here 30 years and I've only started seeing bears the last couple of years. That's because bears are starting to move back into their historic ranges as their population increases. So a habituated bear is a bear that's become accustomed to people. A food conditioned bear is a bear that associates people with food. Neither of those things on their own is that bad. When problems start to occur is when we get a bear that is both food conditioned and habituated, because it has a strong association with people and is not afraid to approach them for food. What this guy's doing with his toddler son right there, the bear, is the worst thing he could be doing. He's intentionally feeding the bear and teaching his son that that's okay, and teaching the bear that it's okay to go up to people. So he's not doing any favors for himself, his son, or the bear. And oftentimes bears have become not comfortable around people. Unfortunately, we end up having to euthanize. And I will say that I hate euthanizing bears. So long story short, never do what he's doing. So common conflicts with bears usually include people feeding bears, not intentionally, but unintentionally. So how do people unintentionally feed bears? Either by bears getting into unsecured garbage, bears eating food put out for other animals, such as neighborhood cats, or people putting out food for their dogs in the backyard, bears getting into bird feeders, or bears getting into unclean grills. And we'll talk in just a moment on how we can take care of these problems and secure these attractants. Good. I think I accidentally went over to slide. Okay, so this right here is Florida State legislature law. And it says that it's illegal to feed bears both intentionally, like what that father is doing, but it's actually also technically illegal to unintentionally feed bears. Meaning leaving out garbage that bears can get into, leaving out bird feeders. So I know you're thinking, if I have a bird feeder out, is someone going to come and arrest me? No. However, when legal action can be taken is, let's say someone has 12 bird feeders all around their yard, and bears are constantly getting into the bird feeders. And FWC law enforcement talks to the person like, hey, you need to take down these bird feeders. The bears are going, through your neighbor's yards, damaging your neighbor's fences, causing problems. And people say, you can't tell me what to do. I'll leave my bird feeders up as long as I want. I don't care about neighbors. That's when we can say, actually, what you're doing is technically against the law. If you don't take them down, there could be legal consequences. So again, it's more for people that are creating problems. They know what they need to do to stop the problem, and they just choose not to do it. So let's talk about some common problems and problem attractants that bears get into and how they can be resolved. So a lot of times bears get into commercial garbage in the form of dumpsters. So if there's a business that has bears getting into the dumpsters, what you want to do is switch up the plastic lids, these flimsy lids right here, for steel doors. If you have the sliding doors on the side of the dumpsters, you want to put the clips on so people can clip the doors and bears can't get into it. It's also helpful to put signs on those sliding doors reminding people to use the clips. I can't tell you how many times the clips are on the doors. They're working really well and they're just not clipped. If they're not clipped, they don't do any good. An even more common problem that I see is bears getting into household or residential garbage. So things you want to do is secure the, so options we have is securing the trash in a building such as a garage until the morning of pickup, not the night before, because bears are smart, they know what trash night is. If you don't have a garage or a place indoors you can store garbage, another option is to retrofit the garbage can with locks or carabiners where the bears can't get into it. Another option is building an actual trash caddy to store your trash until the morning of pickup. And a really great option is actually investing in a bear-resistant trash can. So these are trash cans that are actually designed to keep bears out of them. They tend to be a little bit expensive, but you can get your hands on one, they work great. And as again, you can think of it as an investment. So a lot of times there's issues with bears getting into people's gardens, getting into their livestock like chicken coops or backyard beehives. If you're experiencing any of these things, electric fencing is going to be your best friend. It's a game changer and works really well to keep bears out of these things. And if anyone has a question on how to build an electric fence, that's up to FWC standards. There's a great YouTube video that walks you through building an electric fence. And if anyone has further questions about that, I'm happy to answer them after the presentation. So let's talk a little bit about bird feeders, because I'm guessing we have some avid birders here in the audience. So if you really love your bird feeder and you live around bears and you don't want to take your bird feeder down, we do recommend keeping your bird feeders 10 feet above the ground and 6 feet from any nearby tree. And again, this is not foolproof. I'm just showing you how, even though this bird feeder is 6 feet from any tree and 10 feet off the ground, a determined bear can get to us. So this bear is doing acrobatics just to get to the bird feeder. So the long story short is, I hate to say it, it's best to take your bird feeders down. Again, if you have bears around and it's a problem. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about FWC policy around bears. So if you're having problems with bears, you're always welcome to call FWC for technical assistance over the phone. We definitely do emphasize personal responsibility. So we want to empower people to be able to solve their own bear problems. So we'll go through a lot of things about how to secure attractants to keep the bears off your property, because that's probably why the bears are coming onto your property. There's something on your property they like. We want to be sure that people secure attractants, because if you don't, another bear will come. A lot of people ask, I can't tell you how many people ask, well, why can't you just trap and relocate the bear? Problem solved. Again, even if that bear is gone, if you have one bear in your neighborhood, chances are there's another bear nearby as well. Oftentimes people are like, there's a very large dominant bear in my neighborhood, can't you just relocate it? The problem is that large dominant bear could very well be keeping other bears out of your neighborhood. And once that dominant bear is gone, guess what? Then you got 5 other bears coming in that are less dominant, because the space is just opened up for more bears. So sometimes relocating a bear actually makes the situation worse, believe it or not. Other reasons that we don't just trap and relocate is that bear is already accustomed to people and accustomed to being trash or whatever the attractants are. We're just moving that bear to a different area to probably do the exact same thing somewhere else. 50% of bears repeat the offense in the place that we move them, and a whopping 70% of bears do not stay where we put them. They either wander or actually return back to the area that we relocated them from. A little story, I used to work in bear management in Yosemite National Park in California. They stopped relocating bears because they'd collar the bears and relocate them like 100 miles across the park. They'd be back in 3 days to the same campground that they were going to move from. So I'm not going to say we never relocate, but it's just not that feasible. The sad truth also is we don't have a lot of empty or remote places that we can put bears. We are losing a lot of land, and any place I'm allowed to put a bear is going to be close to people. So if there is a bear in your neighborhood, let's say a bear is up a tree, it's either up there because it's scared, it's trying to get away from you, it's feeding, or it's resting. So if a bear is up a tree, the best thing you can do is clear the area. Try not to crowd it and take pictures, because the more people that are under the tree, the less likely it is the bear will come down. If you clear the area, that allows the bear to come down and find its way out of the neighborhood. It's most likely to come out after dark, so keep in mind it may be up there for a while. I've seen bears actually up in trees for several days, but guess what? They eventually do come down. I've never had a bear actually die up in a tree. So if a bear's up in a tree, just give it time and space to come down on its own. Once it comes down, do not chase or corner the bear. While you don't want to chase or corner a bear, you are definitely welcome to haze the bear, and hazing just means scaring the bear. So the advantage to this is you're letting the bear know it's not welcome on your property. So ways to scare the bear include human dominance. So like yelling at the bear, banging pots and pans, using motion activated lights and alarms, using motion activated sprinklers, bear spray, which we'll talk about in just a moment. If these things aren't working, just pure noise, you may have to up the ante. Maybe the bear is just really comfortable. You are allowed to use paintballs on bears, like paintball guns, as long as you stay away from the face. You're allowed to use slingshots. Air horns work really well. You can get them at Walmart for $12. And even firecrackers are allowed to be used on bears as long as you don't actually throw it at the bear. So who here does not know what bear spray? Okay, so everyone knows what it is. I'll be very short about this. Bear spray works great, particularly when people say, like, I wake up when it's dark to go to work and I'm scared to walk from my house with a car. What do? That's a great time to have your bear spray on you. It's non-lethal, it's easily accessible, and it's actually more effective than a firearm. So when people say, I need to walk with a firearm, when I walk around my neighborhood because of bears, I'm like, leave your firearm in the safe. Get bear spray. It's a lot safer. So bear spray, you want to spray it in 2 to 3 second bursts. It reaches up to 25 feet. Again, it's more effective than a gun. The one thing you want to be careful about is wind direction. You don't want to spray it and have it come right back at you. So hopefully this video plays. I've been having a little bit of trouble with it, but this video just demonstrates how effective just human dominance can be on scaring a bear. And I believe this video was taken in Connecticut. So let's see if it will play for us. No, let me see if I can get it to play on the computer. Success. So you can see there's a
Already go in your office, because he might come after me.
So as you can see, that woman was not a large woman. She meant business. She yelled at the bear like she meant it, and you saw that bear skedaddle. They turned right around and went back into the woods. So my only point in showing you this video is anybody can haze a bear. I hate it when people say, like, I'm a little old lady, I can't do that. I want to show them this video. Yes, you can. So, don't worry, we're getting towards the end. So scaring the bears and scaring the trash, it takes time for the bears to realize that the attractants are secure. If you secure your trash, I hate when people secure their trash and the next day they call me and they say, it didn't work, the bear's still here. Well, of course, the bear's used to getting your trash. It generally takes between 2 to 3 weeks for the bear to realize it can't get into your trash, and it gives up and goes elsewhere. You want to be consistent about it. My other pet peeve as a bear biologist is people secure their trash, the bear goes away, and then 6 months later they call me and say the bear is back. I ask them, is your trash still secured? Oh no, I stopped securing it because the bear went away. Well, it worked, but the reason the bear came back is because now your trash is available again. So you want to be vigilant about it. Keep your attractants secure. Even if you don't see the bear anymore, it just means it's working. You also want to pair it with hazing the bear, scaring the bear. Let the bear know it's not welcome around your house. And you only need one slip up for the bear to return, and then you have got to start the process all over. And that's all I have for you. And happy to field questions if you have. Yeah, I saw your hand first.
I have one question. I've hiked a lot in bear country. I put pebbles in a plastic bottle and put it in the straps in my backpack. I walk and I rattle as I walk. Is that a good, truly effective way to chase them off for air?
Yes and no. It's definitely not a bad idea because the bear can hear something's coming. What's even better is the power of your own voice. Like I spent a lot of time in Alaska, and we always tell kids, like, when they're walking through the woods, to sing and make noise if you're with someone else talk. So with natural noises like pebbles, it definitely lets the bear know something's coming. The only negative is it doesn't know it's a person. It could be anything, like another animal. So it's not a bad idea, but an even better thing to do would just be make human noise, like sing to yourself, if you're hiking with someone else, talk. because then they'll recognize that as a human. So to answer your question, it's not a bad idea, but honestly, your own voice is even better. And I get it, like if you're in the woods, maybe you don't want to be talking. So if you don't want to do that, the hills aren't a bad idea, but a human voice is even better. I think it's another hand.
Yeah, what is FWC doing to enhance the population or grow?
Well, we are protecting the bears, in terms of, conservation and things like that. We did just open up the hunt, but for a very long time, there was no bear hunting to allow the bears to continue to grow their population. We have gotten to the point where the state has felt it has rebounded enough that we can have a sustainable hunt. And the key word of that is sustainable, meaning that the idea is not to bring down the population. The idea is it controls the population, but we're hunting enough where the population will still continue to grow. It will just grow at a lesser rate, if that makes sense. So with the hunt, we're not trying to curtail the population or bring it down. We're just trying to manage it through that tool. Does that answer your question?
Are there preserves or wilderness areas designed for them?
To the best of my knowledge, there's no preserve that's specifically designed for bears, but all the FWC land that is preserved will help with the bear population if there's bears on it. And bears are umbrella species, which means if land is protected that they live on, it protects a lot of other species as well that live on that land too, because they do need a lot of space. So there isn't like a bear sanctuary that's specifically there to protect bears, but there are protected lands that are important habitats for bears, if that makes sense. Yeah.
How many bears are now in Florida, and how many were killed in the last bear hunt?
So I don't have an exact number, but we have over 4,000.
Over 4,000.
Yes, over 4,000. We could possibly have more than that. And the last bear hunt, there were 52 bears too. So
Is there a goal to say we want to keep it at 4,000 above or whatever?
I'll be honest, I don't actually know if there's a goal number. If there is, I haven't been told what it is. I do know that they believe the population is growing, but I don't know if I haven't been told an ideal number. That actually might be more the bear research's realm. So there's bear management, which I'm in, which is managing human bear conflict. And then there's bear research, which just is the research part. They're the ones that do like the counts and the censuses and things, and that they might know a little bit more. I can try to get you the answer at a later time.
Okay.
I saw some hands up there. Let's do you first, sir.
So if I'm in a situation where I'm like hiking with a dog and we have a bear encounter and like I'm unable to get the dog like under control in the sense like where we're barking or panicking in that situation, how should the steps that you told us about change, or should they change? Like what would be the best way to approach it?
So if the steps I told you, it's the same idea with a dog. You just kind of want to modify it. So you still want to talk to the bear and definitely want to back up and create that space. But if you have a dog, what you want to do depends on the size. So if it's a small dog that you can actually pick up, you want to scoop it up, keep it close to you, and back away. If it's too big of a dog that you can't carry it or pick it up, you want to grab it by the collar and keep it close to you, and then back away. Obviously, you want to try to keep it from barking, but you can't always do that. What you definitely want to do is keep it close to you. You don't want to, at the end of a long leash, jumping and trying to get at the bear. If it's a retractable leash, you definitely want to retract it as much as you can. I know it might be kind of hard, but you want to control your dog as much as possible and create that space. I don't have a video, but there's actually a really interesting video that shows what you don't want to do. There were these people with a smaller dog, and they did everything right at first. There was a bear with cubs, and they saw the bear, they scooped up the dog, and they backed up. And then when they felt they were far enough away, they actually put the dog back down. And then the dog started running to the bear. And I think the dog was okay, but like you see the bear tries to chase the dog and the owner freaks out and like, it was a bad scene. It all ended okay. But if the person just kept going and had not put the dog down, none of that would have happened. So the main thing is you always, once you see a bear, you just always want to maintain as much control of your dog as possible and just create that space and keep going. Like don't like, once you move back 10 feet, the problem's not resolved. You want to take your dog and, go back to your house. You just get out of the area. And again, it's not like panic get out, but you just want to give the bear the space and move along. Because again, we can de-escalate the situation. Bears don't really know how to do
I'll also answer the question. Apparently, you want to get rid of your dog and get cat and take that. Oh. Yeah, that was my content. I actually have two. What is it that you do as a biologist, like on a day-to-day basis? And my second one is, so if you're somewhere that has other kinds of bears, do you have any like tips for us? Because obviously you're not going to act the same with black bear as you are for the
Yeah, absolutely. To answer your first question, my day-to-day work, it varies. I'd say 90% of my job is talking to people about securing their attractants. So a lot of times, people call into the office saying that they have bear problems, and there's actually a biologist that just tries to help them over the phone. If she can't help them over the phone for whatever reason, or they're not satisfied with her answer, then those calls come to me. So most of the time the answer is you need to secure your attractants. And I help people do that. Like I'll give people bear locks to their trash cans, I'll go to their house, see what's going on. A lot of times people say, well, I don't have any attractants. What's the problem? I actually go to their house and I see stuff that they don't recognize as attractants, like scented candles, things like that, we don't see as food, but it could bring in a bear just because it smells interesting. Like Epsom salts, things like that. Things that we don't consider food or people just don't see as attractants could be attractants and bring in bears. I do a lot of other things that aren't as common, but definitely do happen. For example, if a bear is getting into someone's like beehives or chicken coops, I talk to them about setting up electric fencing. A lot of people don't know how to do it, so I'll walk them through it, talk to them about what they need to keep their chickens and bees safe. If a bear gets hit by a car, we do not leave bears on the side of the road. I'll pick up dead bears, which is one of the most glamorous things, but I do, and we bring them to these undisclosed locations called boneyards, where we just kind of put them in the woods. They're generally not open to the public, and we just let nature take its course. We don't want to leave them on the side of the road just because they attract vultures and things, but also, believe it or not, people sometimes like to take the dead bears. They want the fur, they want the claws, they want the skull, and it's actually illegal to take roadkill bears. So we try to remove them to remove that temptation. And then I sometimes do set up, again, we don't try it, or it's not our first option to trap bears, but sometimes there are situations where we do feel it's best to relocate a bear. So I sometimes do set up traps, relocate bears. And like that instance where I don't know if you saw the picture of me in the announcement for this presentation, but I was holding a baby bear. So sometimes we do get orphan bears, either the moms are hit by cars and the cubs survive, or in that case, the groundskeepers of a school in Shalimar, they got there at 5 a.m. and were mowing the lawn, and they just came across a bear cub, and mom nowhere in sight. So in that case, I brought a trap and put the bear cub in the trap and left it there overnight. And if the mom comes for it, we know it's not orphaned, and we release it back to mom. But the first night, if she doesn't come for it, that's our indication that the mom's not going to come. So then all the orphan cubs go to a rehab center in Central Florida, where they're raised very hands off. They all go there. So at first it's just one or two, but then quickly, for better or for worse, more always comes throughout the year. So it's kind of like a pack of bears growing up together. And then, we release them all, actually in the Big Bend of Florida. Usually in December or January when they're probably about 9 or 10 months old. And the reason we release them in the Big Bend is, as you saw, there's not very many bears there, but there's lots of great bear habitat. So it's a great place to send our orphan cubs to try to pump up the bear population there. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a lot of different things. It's never a dull moment, but I'd say 90% of my job is just talking to people about their bear problems and trying to find a solution for them. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, today.
Okay, yeah. And then and it's a great job. I love it though. And to answer your other question, there's definitely areas in the United States or other areas of the world where you could encounter a bear that's not a black bear, like a grizzly. So, for example, a grizzly bear or a brown bear, you do want to behave differently than a black bear. The main difference is if you encounter a grizzly bear and it starts making physical contact with you, you can't fight off a black bear. You will never be able to fight off a grizzly bear or a brown bear. And when I say brown bear, they're the same species, just like in Alaska, they're the coastal brown bears. They're the same thing as a grizzly bear, but it's just a different name for them. You'll never be able to fight off a grizzly bear. So in that case, if it starts making physical contact with you, you want to get down on the ground, you want to cover the back of your neck, and hopefully once it sees that you're not a threat, it will leave you alone. Like, and the reason you want to cover the back of your neck is if it starts pawing you, you don't want it to hit, the vital parts on your neck. And again, I know that sounds scary, and it will be, but the thing is, in that case, you're not going to fight it off. You just want to let the bear know, I'm not a threat, you can move on.
Polar bear.
I'll be honest, I used to work in Alaska, so I have more experience with grizzly and brown bears. I have absolutely no experience with polar bears. But my guess is it's the same as a grizzly bear. You're never gonna fight a polar bear off. You probably want to do the same thing, get down on the ground, let the bear know you're not a threat, and hopefully it will move on. Now with the sloth bear in India, I have no idea what you want to do with a sloth bear in India. Unfortunately, I don't know what to do with every single species of bears. That's all your hand? So
is 4,000 bears a good population for the state of Florida, or is there a ton of nuisance bears when there's 4,000? And then I have one more question.
To be honest, I guess I don't really know how to answer that question because good is such a subjective term. But what I will say is that at 500, we definitely wanted to bring up the bear population because we felt like the state could sustain a lot more than that. So it is considered success that we were able to bring it up from 500 in the 1970s to over 4,000 today. So we're definitely happy with that. To us, that is a success. In terms of is that a good number? I'll be honest, I guess I can't really answer that because that's subjective. But we are happy that it's gone from 500 to 4,000. Did that answer your question, Will?
Kind of.
It's
the best as you can.
And you can even ask a follow-up question if you want more detail.
Spay and neuter, is that even spay and neuter versus shoot them?
A lot of people ask about that actually. Like, why can't you just spay or neuter them like dogs or cats? The answer is it takes a lot of resources to do that, and we just don't have the resources or money to do a spay and neutering program. Because the thing is, we would just have to be trapping all these bears. I'm not trained in spay or neutering. I don't think any of the bear biologists in the state are. So we would need veterinarians, and it wouldn't be like cat and dog veterinarians. I think there's only one veterinarian in the entire state that's licensed to work with bears. So we would need to find bear, exotic veterinarians that were licensed to work with exotic animals. Because again, people that work with cats and dogs don't have the license to work with bears, nor are they trained. So to answer your question, while it's a great idea logistically and feasibly, at the moment it's just not feasible, if that makes sense.
Okay. Males, only male.
I have a question about the bears and Gulf Breeze. When I realized there were bears in Gulf Breeze, like, I'm just curious, because it's such a populated area, do you think they live in naval live oaks? Like, or do they?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
I do believe the naval live oaks is part of their range. So the thing is, a lot of people think like bears live in one specific spot. Like people are like, there's a bear living in the woods right behind my house. So like, it might be there and it might spend time there, but bears don't have like this one home that they keep going back to. Like I said, they have ranges, and the ranges are quite large. So to answer your question, there's definitely bears whose ranges are live oaks is part of their range, and they do utilize it. They bed down there and things. But it's not like they have a cave there that they go to every night. But yes, there are bears that have utilized naval live oaks. That's part of their range for sure. Yeah.
Surprised me to hear that the bear population is growing. Every other creature that we hear about in Florida and across the United States will decline due to loss of habitat and environmental factors. Here we're talking birds, Florida panthers almost gone. What is it about bears that makes their population so much more than others?
So clearly in the 1970s, there was more land available to them, yet there was less bears. And there's less just because of population development, things like that. The thing that makes bears so special is their adaptability. So bears, a lot of people say, like I live in a suburban environment, like Holly by the Sea, for example, it's one giant suburb. There's lots of bears through there. And people say like, it's a suburb, there shouldn't be bears here. Even if they feel there shouldn't be bears there, the bears don't feel that. Bears can and do live in suburban environments. The thing is, like these little patches of woods in Navarre, the bears go there during the day, but then at night they come out and they, feast on the garbage, which is why we tell people, if you secure garbage, I'm not gonna say you're never going to see a bear in Holly by the Sea, but they won't be seeing your neighborhood as a feeding ground. They will stay more in those patches of woods. They'll stay more in Egland Forest. But just bears are very adaptable. So even if everyone secured their trash, they'd still be around, but they wouldn't be there every night seeing it as like a food buffet. So it would change their behavior. But the thing that makes bears so successful is they're just very adaptable. They can live in the middle of the wilderness, but they can also live in pretty highly populated areas as long as there's enough patches of forest for them to kind of bed down in. So I would say is their adaptability. Whereas like a panthers would not be able to really thrive in a suburban environment. They need miles and miles of untouched wilderness, whereas a bear can live obviously in untouched wilderness, but it doesn't need that to survive. So I guess in one word, adaptability. That's what makes them really special. Yeah, and makes them be so successful. Kind of like coyotes. They're just so adaptable and they just fill in all these niches. So these animals that you hear the population just, is going up where so many other populations are going down. I say the fact that they're like a generalist species that can adapt to different situations.